Chinese Communist Party and media censorship go hand in hand together. One doesn't exist without the other. And in the midst of the protest in China, the government has found an unlikely ally in hiding their crimes. Believe it or not, their friend in need rises from the land of freedom, the United States of America. In a twisted turn of events, YouTube is now being accused of sponsoring Chinese censorship globally. So, what's happening? A quick glance into history would show you that censorship is perhaps the most important instrument in maintaining power. The Chinese Communist Party is no different. There's a reason why Xi Jinping is in his third term as the supreme leader. The CCP is just all about fake news, propaganda, and censorship, all day, every day. Every news channel in the country is controlled by the state, so they have all the power to hide or show whatever they want. Apparently, China is a prosperous country where every citizen has equal human rights, and of course, they're super happy with the CCP. Alright, that sounds like a bit of an exaggeration, right? But nope, not really. The CCP-controlled news outlets are just machines to fulfill the state's commands. To this date, we aren't sure how many COVID-19 cases are in the country. And all of that is happening when China is perhaps living its most turbulent timeline. And what does the media have to say about it? Well, absolutely nothing. China is going through a massive surge of protests. After a long time, the citizens of China are demanding their right to vote openly. When has that happened in the streets of China recently? By all accounts, times are changing in the country. But as usual, the government is putting up all the barriers between political progress and access to information. So how do we know what we know about China? The answer lies in the power of the internet. For years, the citizens of China look for out-of-the-box ways to report on what's exactly going on in their country. From the hashtag #MeToo movement to the demand for democracy in China, the internet keeps buzzing with resistance and protest. You can't access popular social media channels in the country either. The CCP fears Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube for the power they hold. And here's when things started to get twisted. Why does China have an odd relationship with YouTube? In 2009, the Chinese government effectively blocked YouTube from their country. There weren't any hard and fast reasons except for the growing popularity of the website. The video sharing site has become a driving force behind street politics and amassing information. Big revolutions like the Arab Spring in the Middle East and the Pink Tide in Latin America made use of YouTube to engage with the world. And it worked like a charm. The support for democracy and human rights restoration. Two things that are China's worst nightmare. Xi Jinping is known to kill the spark before it becomes a spark. So, killing YouTube was more strategic than you'd ever realize. And just not that. The government also changed the regulation on accessing blocked websites via VPN. In China, this common act of bypassing the proxy is actually a cybercrime. So far, CCP isn't doing a crackdown on YouTube users, but it can change its mind whenever they want to. But there always has been a counter to Xi Jinping's obsession with censorship. Investigative journalism and brave whistleblowers in China, Hong Kong, and Taiwan always run exposés on the CCP, and this is exactly how we got insights into the devastations of the pandemic. So, yeah, for years, the Western media has worked hard to surpass Chinese censorship to report the crimes of the CCP. Yet now, this dynamic is eroding. Unironically, at the forefront of this devastating turn is YouTube. Who knew that Xi Jinping's worst internet nightmare would turn into an unlikely ally? Users all around the world are reporting that YouTube is censoring reporting on the ongoing protests in China. When commentators started to criticize the CCP for the recent crimes in China, YouTube didn't only flag the videos, but also restricted the audience. This isn't the first time that the site has shown support for the authoritative regime. Sure, this time the issue is highly sensitive and critical, but the news isn't exactly shocking or new. YouTube's misguided support towards Xi Jinping has always been a subject of criticism by native Chinese users who access the site via VPN. Back in 2020, a group of users noticed that whenever they criticized their government for its atrocities, the site would automatically delete their comment. And, before you ask, criticizing your government has nothing to do with YouTube's community guidelines. What happened was completely bizarre. In China, insults against the CCP are coveted but aren't exactly a secret. You'll find their critics calling them communist bandits or 50-cent party. For the youth, these are basically memes that are creatively made to highlight Xi Jinping's human rights violations. So whenever these meme phrases made it to the YouTube comment section, they'd get deleted in less than 15 seconds. Usually that doesn't happen. If the video sharing website started to delete all the comedic comments against Donald Trump or Joe Biden, everyone would lose in the US. So how did YouTube get away with this sort of soft censorship? Well, no one really cared about it. When the Chinese users complained about the deletion of the comments, the site only flagged it as an honest mistake or a glitch. But hey, the glitch went on for at least a year, and the voices of people remained oppressed. Now the situation is far more drastic in China. The government's zero-COVID policy has forced millions of people into quarantine with no job security or food. In fact, even healthcare is running thin. Limited coverage of the protest has shown that the state is deploying heavy police to make sure that people don't escape. The situation was so bad that people had to clash with the police to free themselves from a horrifying quarantine in congested buildings with no food and water. People were already radicalized when a one-man protest in Beijing changed the course of history. Ping Lifa, an activist, hung a banner on a bridge in the city that said the most powerful lines: "We don't want a leader, we want a vote." These two lines were enough to trigger a series of protests in China. University students disrupted their education to organize themselves against the CCP. In recent history, the labor class in China broke into a protest against state-controlled corporations. This is a huge feat for a country that lives through the everyday oppression of a very authoritative government. So don't you think YouTube owed them fair coverage? Or is this news not worthy of what's trending on the internet? If you're the CCP, you'd obviously say no. But if you're YouTube, who lives under the banner of free speech in the US, your response should be much different. Yet that didn't happen. In fact, the site joined hands with the CCP to censor the ongoing protests in the country. Here's when we answer the big bad question of the day. Since when did YouTube and Xi Jinping enter into their best friends arc? Well, they met through a mutual friend known as Apple. Yup, YouTube's current censorship of the zero-COVID protest has everything to do with the iPhone manufacturer Foxconn. The fact that your iPhone is assembled in China shouldn't be news to you. Apple has enjoyed cheap labor and products that its assembler Foxconn offers. What you mostly don't get to hear is the state-sponsored crimes of the iPhone assembler. Low wages, child labor, horrible working conditions, unfair firings. That's just 10% of what's wrong with Foxconn. When a COVID outbreak forced the company to seal its complex in Jintao, everything went downhill. The corporation didn't only imprison thousands of workers in the complex, but also forced them to assemble iPhone 14s in inhumane working conditions. The labor force continuously complained about the lack of food, water, and space to sleep in the complex, which Foxconn ignored. Nothing takes priority in front of the global supply chain of a new phone, right? And that's exactly what Apple didn't want you to know. So their go-to move was to suppress all info on the protest against Foxconn to continue selling their iPhones, especially to their consumers in the US. The manufacturer isn't stupid. They know solidarity and ethical consumption are rising trends all over the world. All things considered, YouTube's soft censorship is a huge trade-off. Apple just sold us a bunch of iPhone 14s at the expense of the freedom of expression of the Chinese natives. And they did this very smartly. You wouldn't expect Apple to emerge as an important key player in the case of censorship in China. But that's exactly how the corporate world is balanced. There are backdoor agreements and a lot of mutually assured destruction. If Apple goes out of their way to criticize the human rights violation of Foxconn, are they ready to lose a stable supply of cheap labor? Well, no. Just a mild day for censorship, right? And mind you, this isn't happening in China. It's happening in the YouTube headquarters, right in the middle of the land of the free. If you found this video interestingly shocking, give us a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more insightful content like this.